Alrighty, welcome to Romera Records Virtual Cast. Today we have on Judy Rodman. How's it going?
It's going good. It's great to be with you.
It's great to have you on. I love doing podcasts with people who know the music business and know things of that nature. So I saw you on Podmatch, and I'd love to have you on because it's great to be able to speak to somebody who has the knowledge of vocal coaching. Is that and that's what you
Right.
do, and just the knowledge of being able to speak to somebody who can grasp those concepts and be able to relay them probably better than I can. So if you could just speak about the stuff that you've done and what you're currently doing.
Well, I've actually been in the music business for over 50 years now.
Hmm.
So, in the music business, there's nothing that stays the same except change. And so, my career has taken so many rabbit trails and hit so many brick walls and found pivot points that what I'm trying to say is when I think about your question about what is it that I do, right at this point in my life, it's about mentoring other people mostly, but I still do everything I ever did before. So it's so funny because I'm not just teaching, I'm still doing the stuff that I teach. And so that makes it more kind of professionally, valuable and relevant. And, the gear has changed and the business has changed, but the voice is kind of still stays the same. And good music is good music. And being good to people and creating, a path where behind you where you've left good things so that networking is kind of easy, that those things stay the same, helping people and that being the way, you pay things forward when people do things for you, and just being an overall good person and trying to do everything as excellently as you can. Not perfectly. That's a toxic word, but excellently, And so that's kind of what I've done. I started out as well, I've been, singing all my life, but I started out as a jingle singer in Memphis, Tennessee. I was born in Riverside, California, and lived everywhere from there to Alaska to England to Miami. But my musical roots are so deeply in Memphis. So you know about Memphis music.
I'm
Uh,
currently in Memphis.
oh my goodness. Okay. Oh my gosh, of course. No wonder I like you. uh, and your voice feels so good. But anyway, so I started out at a place called Pepper Tanner, which was a jingle mill that we did like 70% of the world's jingles at the time. And I worked there about 7 or 8 years. And on the side, I did background vocals at High Records and Ardent Studios, and also for Len Lou, which is Larry Rogers' country stuff. So I did everything from R&B stuff to rock stuff to country stuff. At night after my jingle day, which was from 8:30 to 3:30, was over, and then also in the night I joined a cover band of studio people, so it was really top notch, a not top notch cover band, and the drummer became my husband. So that a lot. Memphis is very serendipitous for me, very influential in so many ways. Uh, but then I moved to Nashville and started up. I had vocal damage from an endotracheal tube when my son was born. So all of these things that I've gone through have gone into what I know about the voice experientially, not just theoretically or academically, but experientially. So, that's kind of where I come from. And then I lost my voice completely, lost an octave and a half of my range even when I got it back. But then I had a number one record as an artist, and then I had a number one record when that fell through. That label folded. I had a number one record as a songwriter with Leanne Rimes, One Way Ticket Because I Can. And then I've had a number one records as a producer for people like Tiffany Hasker, who's number one on the digital country charts of New Music Weekly right now for my last production. And I have been voted Nashville's best vocal coach by Nashville Music Pros. And so I'm trying. See what I'm trying to do is excellent stuff that is worthy of being out there, and that makes me a more efficacious in teaching somebody else. And I also know what to avoid. I also know the places in the music business that you don't want to tread, and how to protect yourself. And so that goes along, with vocal coaching, and you kind of become a therapist too, because my vocal coach, Daryl Arthur, was my therapist. So it just all kind of goes together.
Something like when you were first talking, that
Mm-hmm.
really is something that I've learned being in the either the music business or really in general in life,
Mm-hmm.
meeting
Mm-hmm.
professionals. You were talking about just paying it forward and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I've learned just being nice can go
Oh my
a
gosh.
long way.
It's just being kind.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
People don't realize that first things first. You don't want to be a pushover, but you also
No.
don't want to just try and bully people around trying to get what you want. If you can find like that happy medium where you're just
Mm-hmm.
nice to people and you're genuine, just trying to get to where you want to go. Like you should be determined. You should have aspirations in life, but at the same time, like help people along the way. Like when you've learned things, guide other people to do what
Right.
you've done.
And I never wanted to. I never wanted to be a coach. That was not part of my job description for myself ever. And I love it. It's so fulfilling to be able to kind of blow some wind underneath somebody else's wings and help people out. So I've worked with singers and speakers all over the place, and all kinds of genres, and all kinds of different kinds of speakers as well. And it's just been so much fun. And I learn something every day, so that I hope to just continue to be more valuable as I go. But one thing I find that's really important, no matter what your occupation, is to drill down into your deepest why.
Mm,
You know, why are you doing it? And if it's to be as famous as you can, or if it's to have as much money as you can, or if it's to be as powerful over other people as you can, there is not enough in the universe to fill that black hole that you create for yourself. Instead, if your why is to be valuable, that's the deal. Make help people, be something that do something that can really make the world a better place and help people. And then the weird thing is that's where you're valuable, and
mm,
that's where your occupation you can find not only success but security, because the world will never run out of need for help,
yeah.
right? So it's drilling down to being a really good human. And I was a former beekeeper,
Mm,
and I think about the bees a lot. And it's like if one little bee goes off and goes, you know what? I'm going to find my own thing. I'm going to be the best bee in the world. I'm going to get all the flowers to myself, and I don't have to share anything. Well, that little sucker's going to die come winter.
yeah.
It's the bees that get together and feed each other and raise the young, and it's a community. I so believe in the concept of the village. But to pivot on that point, a lot of people that are creative are lone wolves,
Mm,
right? And they feel like a fish out of water because they're so unique.
hmm.
Well, you got to find your lone wolf club,
Yeah.
and there are people out there that are the same way, and they're looking for you. So it's just find a village that's full of trustable, useful, uh, and people that also need you.
Yeah, I think, what you're talking about shows in like the major groups. Like we hardly ever see like a big band or a big group stay together for a long period of
Yeah,
time.
yeah.
I mean, even look at Destiny's Child. Like Beyonce ended up navigating her way to the top, and Kelly Rowland has been successful as well. But we all know we knew Destiny's Child, and they were great for their time. But then individually, they just split and did their own separate thing, and Beyonce escalated, and that happens with people every once in a while. But
Right.
um, as you were just talking about, when you're creative and you're really good at it, it's sometimes difficult to find people who have the same drive that you have, that the same aspirations you have. Um,
Right. And in music, that have the same sort of idea of what you want to do. Just as simple as that. Sometimes bands split very naturally and actually with friendship because they just don't. They're not going the same trajectory. I just spoke with and interviewed for my podcast one of the Voltage brothers. I don't know if you know who that is, but Douglas Smith. It was an R&B group that they're still going. They've been going 50 years. But he felt called to, instead of go on the road, and I mean, they were opening for everybody. They were all over Europe. They were very, very successful. And when he started doing production, started working with people that were on Prince's tour. I mean, he was doing so good, but he felt called to the ministry, and so that's a whole different, kettle of fish. But that's where he felt like he was unhappy. His band actually did an intervention on him, his people, because they were afraid he was turning his back on a really good thing.
mm,
But now, oh my gosh, he's up in Rochester, New York, and he is working with food deserts, creating gardens to feed people with. I mean, he's the real deal. We were talking, and he said the coolest thing. He said, "I work the night shift."
yeah,
So it's like sometimes creatively we get into other things, and that's totally legit if you split. But it's when bands split up because everybody wants to hog the spotlight, or everybody wants to own the songs or the band's name, or all those other things. That's not a fulfilling split. That's gonna leave an ache,
yeah.
you know.
So when you were getting into coaching and you started doing that, did it seem
Hmm.
like you learned a lot more, or was your knowledge about where it was going to be? Because a lot of times people say
Wow.
when you start teaching, you learn more.
That's such a great question because you're right. I started teaching because other, things fell through. And I was like, what can I do now? And there was a girl named Carol Chase who was on the Leonard Skinner tour, doing backgrounds on their tour, and she was having trouble hitting a note. And I'm like, and so she knew me because we'd worked sessions forever in Nashville, and we'd also co-written at Warner Chapel. And so she said, Judy, can you help me hit this note? I'm having trouble on the road with this particular note. And I'm like, how do you think I know? And I didn't say that, but I did. And I was able to help her. And she knew that I knew because I used to lead groups and tell them what to do and all that, like the boss woman. And so I was able to help her. So that gave me the idea. I don't know, maybe I can teach voice. So I started, and what I started with was what I knew, what worked for me. And after a few years, I kept asking myself, what works for me and works for other people? And then my students would bring me books from teachers because they wanted me to interpret what that teacher was saying. So I kind of figured out what they were doing and gleaned what worked for me and my students from that, and didn't, left the other alone. And then I got curious about the voice and why, not just what, but why it was working. So I talked to Alexander technique practitioners and double teamed some students with one and went to one myself. I had a chiropractor who was into it, and we talked about how the pressure point for the diaphragm is in the same place in the upper spine that I poke people, things like that. And my two brother-in-laws are doctors, and we talked about anatomy. And I studied. Uh, I actually trade lessons with a classical coach who is into voice science. And I'll say now, Mark Tress is his name, and I'll say, okay, Mark, he teaches me classical, and I teach him contemporary voice, and we help each other's students out that way. But I'll say, Mark, now this happens, and this works for my students. Why is that working? And he'll explain it, and then I can do it better. And then I'll give him a suggestion, and so it's the village again, you know. And if we ever stop learning, we just need to quit.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I've learned so much, and I learn all the time. And I've been teaching for over 2 or 3 years, 22 or 3 years now. So it's been fantastic. And every student, of course, brings their own issues, and then I'll have to go on an internet search for, you know, vocal sulcus or the different things that people come in with that I've never heard of before, and I will figure out if I've got the toolkit for it, and if I don't, I'll ask a doctor, or I'll ask Mark, or whatever, but I'll find out, or I'll send them to an otolaryngologist, which I have a lot, you know, sent people to that, and figuring it out. It's like this incredible creative thing to be a vocal coach that is continually learning, you know.
What are some things that you've seen that have changed over time? I mean, you were singing and writing for so long, and now you're coaching, so you're getting to see it from the other end. How
Yes.
what's some changes that you've seen in the artist?
One thing is that people are allowed to write a lot more lyrics per line than they used to. they so I had to learn that one from an alt pop student that I was teaching, and I was thinking she's bringing in songs, and we're co-writing, and she's like got a billion words a line, and then she said, well, yeah, but what about Alanis Morissette, who I hadn't heard yet. So I checked her out, and I was like, okay. And then there's Taylor Swift and all that stuff, and then there's R&B, and there's rap, and those you know, the lyrics that go on like that. So, you know, the music obviously has changed, but I'll tell you what hasn't changed with the music. Roots music
Mm,
will always be part of whatever is going on.
mm,
So, very, you know, organic. And of course, the gear has changed incredibly. But how to approach a mic has not.
yeah.
Uh, the business has changed incredibly, so you almost don't recognize it. But what hasn't changed is the more people you can connect with, either perform for or talk to, the better, one on one, and it spreads, you know. And the other thing is, you know, is be valuable when you're networking in a business sense. Uh, for the music business part, try to figure out where you are of value to whoever it is you're talking to, and instead of just like, here's my new single, like, you know, would you play it, or, you know,
Yeah.
book me in your show because I'm really good.
Yeah, that's something that again I've learned over time is if you want to build a relationship with somebody, you should come into it with what can I do for them
For
instead of what
you.
they can do for me.
Yes. Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the way you grow a wonderful village too, you know. And if you're not of any use, you figure out how you can be, or learn something, or do something that will give you the credits that you know they're looking for, or something like that. Yeah. Another thing, of course, that's changed big time is the ability to break through the bottleneck of the music business.
Mm,
Now, the good part is you can break through. I've got this broadcast mic here that I can do background vocals on or lead vocals on
yeah.
in my office. And then I can upload it to iTunes, and I can promote it, you know, and online and all the different places you promote it. And the ability for indie music, or the ability for anyone to be an independent musician or artist, of course, didn't exist before. If you weren't on one of the big 3 or 4, you just didn't exist. So the ability to be visible is there, but that means you've got a lot of competition in that field. So the job then is to become visible to people that would love what you do. So what I tell people when, and this is the coach in me coming out, working with new artists and artists that are up there. But what I tell people is to really be successful, you've got to do two things really well. One is your craft. You have to be a great singer, not just a good singer. You have to be a great writer or player. If you're playing an instrument or while you're performing, you got to know how to move on stage, and you got to be great at your craft. And if you're not, what you're going to do is you're going to honor that old. I think I heard this in Memphis the first time. This old adage that you know how to make $1 million in the music business? Start with 2 million. Okay, so you got to be really good at your craft, but then you've got to be really good at current music business. So you got to dig in and you got to learn. You can't just sit around with your guitar in your lap and whine. You have to actually learn what's going on, who's doing it, how they're doing it, and just dig in, just like you do when you're learning how to sing, or you're learning your instrument, or you're learning to write, or you're doing whatever it is you're doing. That's just not enough now. You have to be your own label. And then you become valuable to a label. The best way to become an artist on a major label is to treat it more like a joint venture, where you're bringing a fan base they want, so they are not going to be able to get the kitchen sink and everything else at your firstborn when you sign the deal with them. So and then it's win-win for everybody. You got to figure out how to make it win-win for everybody, including yourself, because you've got to feed yourself and your band and your family. So that's the thing. It's a two-track thing. And while you're doing your music, you don't need to be doing business. You need to be doing, focused on your song and commit, and just in the moment of the movie scene that song is in, whether you're in the studio or you're writing it or you're performing it. And then when you're doing business, that's we put another hat on.
Yeah, and I think years ago, the labels would have the ability to take the time to find somebody with pretty good talent and then cultivate them and make them better, give them a new look and all that kind of stuff. But nowadays, they want you to be ready from the jump.
Yeah, that's what happened with me. I was kind of on that edge between when that was going on and labels had tricked out R&R departments, and so that they could mentor their artists and grow their artists and make them visible. And that was important because we didn't have the ability to reach audiences through the internet like we do now. So that's what happened with me. They didn't. I knew what I was doing, but they had my producer. They had the fact that Tommy West was my producer, and he was one of the heads of the label. So there was that, and then they took me to the radio shows, and we did the Dog and Pony show and all that. And I kind of came. I kind of came with the ability to be an artist, but they had to make me visible. So now you can't do that unless you bring a lot of money to the table, and then good luck recouping it. So the best way to do it is to grow your own fan base. And if you're not willing to do that, then realize that what you're doing is a hobby or something to fulfill your heart, which can be really important. And I'll tell you, some of the hobbyist, quote unquote, musicians and singers are better than the ones on the radio. All right? So it's not whether you're an artist, it's whether you are a viable commercial artist. And so, like I say, on the creative side, you may be hands down better than the people you're hearing on the radio. But it's just, you have to become visible. You can't have this private career, and that takes work. So that doesn't mean you don't need to sing, though, or make music or make music.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Do you think that there's a, I guess, unrealistic expectation from some artists either on their own talent or how the music business is supposed to go when they start getting involved in things like that?
Absolutely, there is. It's like someone will email me and say, "How can I make it in Nashville? Do I need to know somebody?" Uh, where do I start? And then I created a blog post on all things vocal that is about how to make it in the music business. But really, what I want people to understand is that there's a bunch of different ways to be successful. You're successful if what heart and energy and money and time that you put into it, uh, if the results are worth it to you. Even if it means, I've got a client right now who we've just done a little project, and I've been working with him for a while now, and he's gotten good enough to record his voice on a little project. And his little grandchild danced to it, and that made everything worth it for him.
Mm,
And he's going into it eyes wide open, because I'm telling him in the first place, no, you're probably not gonna get a record deal. But it doesn't matter. He's successful because he's doing what he wants to do.
mm,
Somebody else might want to gig a little bit, maybe around town, maybe be in a cover band. Somebody else might not be totally happy just doing like Eva Cassidy did, who is, if you don't know about her, she passed away, but she did some demos in New York, and now they're all over movies. They got there about 10 years after she passed,
mm.
but she was very happy doing what she was doing, trading studio time for dog sitting and things like that, because she was making the kind of music she wanted to make. So there's lots of different ways to look at being successful. If you're looking for a big commercial music career, well, then you're going to have to dig in and do the work.
Yeah. Is there something that you feel like a lot of people might have a sense of, they might have a sense of urgency to do, but they can't quite get it done, whether it's, getting a certain amount of songs done or working with certain people. I've noticed a lot of people, they have these thoughts and ideas like, oh, I want to do this, but they don't seem to be able to get it done.
They don't follow through. Yeah. You have to have a plan. And this goes for any business. Uh, and, if it's not a business, if it is a hobby and you really want to get good at it, in the first place, ask yourself why. Does it bring you joy? Then you should have joy practicing.
Mm,
It should be like, hunting treasures inside yourself and in your voice to see what you can come up with. But if it's business, then like any business, and I'm telling you, I'm card carrying, not a business person, or wasn't. I am now. But, a lot of musicians and creative people aren't wired for doing business. Guess what? Stop whining and figure it out. I'm
mm,
on a need to know basis. And if I need to know it, I'll find out, or I'll find somebody who can tell me where to go to find out. And so what you don't do well, sitting down maybe and making a plan, get some help. Maybe find a business coach, mentor, or your friends that can hold you accountable. But make a plan. And a simple way to think about it is, okay, ask yourself why you want to do this. All right, once you get that figured out, where would you like to be in 10 years, in 5 years, in 1 year? And once you figure out, maybe 5 years or 3 years might be a good sort of thing where you can think realistically about where you'd like to be and what you'd like to be doing, or what stage you'd like to be performing on. Then you back up from there and you go, okay, if by the third year I want to play Red Rocks, then or Mud Island, then what do I need to do the second year, in the first and second year, to get there? Do I need to start writing down some booking agents' names and kind of just networking with them and like that? But you go from the year, then okay, well then if I need to contact such and such and get her to book me by whatever, then I need to have this many songs ready to go and learned, and I actually need to maybe write something, or I need to learn something. Anyway, you back up and you go, so what do I need to do in month 12, month 11? Every month, and then back that up into weeks. What do I need to do this month? What do I need to do this week? What do I need to do today? And you write it out on a calendar so that you make appointments. You can't do this every day. You cannot do this every day. You have to, like, just find a quiet time or a weekend or something where you sit yourself down and you think about all this stuff and you lay it out and you carve it out into the calendar and you put it down like you're making appointments for yourself, and you try to make it reasonable. If you've got a day job and you can't, you got to think, what could you really do? Don't try to put 3 hours into 15 minutes. But then you don't have to think about it. All you have to do is open up your calendar and look at what you've programmed your boss has programmed for you today, to do today. And then when you do a week's worth of those little tasks, even if it's one thing a week, by the end of the week, you got something done towards the month, towards the year, towards the 3-year goal. And here's another thing you got to know. It never works out exactly that way. But it doesn't matter, because you're on the way to something that's probably better than what your goal was. Yeah. It's happened every time. It's happened for me that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple phrases that I've adapted from the things that you were talking about. One is people overestimate what they can do in a day, but they underestimate what they can do in a year. And
you're right.
That's something that I've definitely picked up, because I'll be thinking, oh, I can do this, and that, and then I'm like, hold on, I'm not going to have time to do that, or something's going to come up during the day and I'm not going to be able to do that. But when you make that plan, like what you were talking about, like, all right, this is what I'm doing during the week, and then if you just multiply that by 4, that's a month, and then multiply that month by 12, and that's your full year. And if you plan it out correctly, it should align with each other. If it doesn't, then you know if you over or underestimated what you could do.
Right. But you just put your feet in the water, and you make that first leap of faith. And then you hold yourself accountable, or have at least one friend who will ask you, how you doing with, that you can ask to hold you accountable. And don't overdo it. And if you do overdo it, then guess what? You get back and you have another weekend and you re-string the chores out in more of a realistic manner. But you're on roller skates. Well, that, check your pulse. As long as you're alive, you're going to be on roller skates, because this world, as we know, is changing like crazy. So the best thing you can do is learn to be on roller skates, and not. But what you don't want to do is expect exactly what you're planning to come true, and you don't want to not move. You got to kind of find that balance.
Yeah, and I think that when a lot of times people are doing something that they really care about, like music, they tend to get very emotional about where they are. So if they aren't super successful, they're just like, well, I'm a failure, and then they just quit. But it's that seeing those steps, seeing that process, and be like, okay, this is next. Okay, this is next.
Yeah, and getting back to the why, you know?
Yeah.
Why are you doing it? I have a family to feed, actually, and all I've ever done is music business, So I had to get my voice back. I didn't want to do the things that I had to do because it was a lot of trouble. But if your why is strong enough, then I think I would challenge anyone that is sort of treading water and procrastinating to really drill down and ask themselves why they're doing it. And then they're going to make better decisions. It doesn't mean that you have to practice every day. It doesn't mean that you have to spend money on production. It doesn't mean anything except that you know why you're doing it. So then your steps make more sense to your lizard brain, which is busy trying to plan things out for you.
Yeah. I was actually producing a song for one of my friends, and
Ah,
he he was like, "Man, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know what the lyrics should be." And I was like, "Well, what are you?" I was like, "What are you talking about? Like, what's the song about?" He was like, "I don't know." I was like, "That's your problem." You
there
ain't the
you
song.
go. Why are you writing this song?
And that's that.
Why
Figure
is
out
this?
why.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah. And what is the story? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
Let me tell you something I've discovered about that. And I've never, I've got a BMI Millionaire award for a song, and I've had tons of songs and tons of catalogs, but I've never read a book on songwriting.
Hmm.
What I did was I dissected songs, hit songs, all the time. I was in a cover band and doing jingles and doing, writing. I just found myself just dissecting and sort of immersing myself in song structure and all that. I've come to the point where when I coach somebody with songwriting, uh, there's a really cool thing I discovered from a voiceover coach named Susan Berkeley, and it's kind of like an acting technique. And it's she says, when you get your script that you're going to do for voiceover, ask yourself, like immerse yourself in a sensory way into this script. What, who are you talking to first? That's the biggest thing. Who are you talking to? And when you're writing a song, you don't have to know that at first, but yeah, you do. You kind of, because that may change. You may change I to you or to we or she or him or something later. But try to find who you're speaking to, because that will make more sense to you. Okay, what is the story? What's the backstory? What happened up to this point? What do you want them to know in this song? What is the basic central message? Do you want to deliver this person to this person? Why are you doing that? What do you want from them? The brass ring for singing and songwriting is this: get the response from the heart. The lyric or the words are to,
Hmm.
not the audience. From that heart, and then you're going to sing it a certain way, and you're going to write it a certain way, and it'll stay sort of focused, on that story. And if you can come up with a strong message and you want a strong response back, and I'm talking about that little physical response, like, or or just something that makes you know that they're listening. And you, of course, at this point, you've got to use your imagination, right? But if you're telling someone they've been bad to you, you want them to shrink. If you're telling someone that you're finally admitting that you care for them, you want their eyes to open a little bigger.
Hmm.
If you're asking someone, do they feel the same way, you want the softening on their face. I'm talking about human body language and facial language response, because you can't read their minds. And when you go for that with songwriting or speaking, it changes everything. And it's very powerful.
Yeah, I say that when you're writing lyrics, you want to be convincing. Like
Yeah.
that's the key word to me is if I and even the performance. If you're the singer or rapper, whatever you do,
Hmm.
if you can't convince me what you're trying to relay, then it's not really going to hit. And there's multiple artists who, when you hear them sing, you can like feel it, like a
Hmm.
Whitney Houston or
That's why I started to use that very name, Whitney Houston, for sure. That's the reason people tend to prefer her over some of the more verbose people with even more ability, more vocal ability, but they believed her. She was there. She was in the moment, and she was delivering messages in a movie scene to a
mm,
heart. You can almost see the person's eyes that she's talking to. Yeah.
I,
Authenticity and passion. Yeah.
uh, have you had a chance to listen to or watch that documentary on YouTube? It's of the Muscle Shoals studio.
Oh no, but I want to. I worked with a lot of people that came to Nashville from Muscle Shoals and from Memphis, and their sisters, their sister cities for sure. I think Carol Chase, in fact, was from Muscle Shoals that ended up on the Leonard Skinner tour.
Hmm.
But no, I'd love to though. Uh,
They
that to
were
be done.
they were talking about Aretha Franklin and one of the songs that she did that she cut down there, and
Yeah,
it was one of those things where the band, I think they had the beat or something, or they had maybe the lyrics, one part of the full song,
yeah.
and they said Aretha just started singing, and it was and like everybody just
Put it in red.
everybody just hurried up and started doing what they needed to do because they wanted to capture that moment, and that's what it's all about, is when you can feel like everybody knew when she started
Yeah,
that was gonna be the song.
yeah.
And those are the types of people that you should surround yourself with, because you know
Right.
they're putting their all into that music, and you're gonna get 100% out. Because some people think they can put 50% in, 75% in, and get 100 out, but it doesn't work that way.
No, no. Again, you get back to who are you talking to? Why is it that you want them to know what you're saying?
Yeah.
And then don't look back. And you can do amazing things. You can actually hit amazing notes doing that too, just like Whitney did. But you can't do it if you are worried about your voice, or if you're not. A lot of people don't even know what the message is to the song they're singing. They have no idea. They're just singing notes, and sometimes very well. But who cares? you know. Yeah, there's that little special thing is being in the moment with a conversation. It really is.
Is it difficult to teach people, as we were talking about earlier, like speaking to the audience, like somebody who I always keep in mind is Taylor Swift. Like I think she's about, I'm 29. I think she's close to my age, but she does so well at reaching younger girls,
Yeah,
and even lyrically, like she has such a
sure.
huge
Right.
age difference, I think, to be making lyrics like that, even if she's not writing the lyrics, whatever, but she can still have that kind of emphasis in her words. Do you think it's hard for people to do that, to reach the audience that they're trying to get to?
Well, the first thing you have to do is know who you are and what you know.
Hmm.
Taylor Swift was a young girl, and she knew some things about being bullied. I knew someone that knew her when she was growing up, one of my students, in fact. And and she spoke, she knew about how young girls can get hurt,
Hmm.
and the pitfalls that they can fall into, and how they, the body shaming and the whole bit that goes on with teenage girls. And so she wrote to that, and she was authentic,
Hmm.
and she wasn't like anybody else because nobody else was writing to that. So and you know what? Those girls have grown up with her, and she writes a little differently now, but that's where they are. She knows who she's talking to, and she knows the messages she wants to give. And so that's the thing, think of your audience as one heart, one like avatar, one composite heart. Who are they, and why do they need what you're saying? Or why do they need you to talk to your bully like she did in the song? Someday I'll be living in a big old city and all you're ever going to be is me. Well, that's not
Yeah.
to the audience. That's to the bully.
Hmm.
And she sings it in front of the audience. But they know she's not singing it to them. She's singing it for them. And she's really clear about that. And so it's clarity of purpose and intent. And when you get all those sled dogs, to mix a metaphor here, but going in the same direction with the lead sled dog going, I'm delivering this message to you, and this is the response I want. She wants all those, she wants her avatar teenage audience member to just melt and just go, somebody understands me,
Mm.
right? So every artist has their own, they first of all know who you are, who would you relate to, and imagine even if you haven't built an audience yet, they would be kind of like you. They would understand the things you understand, and they would need some things that you know that you need. Well, how can you speak to that? I wrote One Way Ticket in a hard time in my life, and it was about getting out of this hard place I was in.
Mm.
And I wasn't out of it, but I wrote myself out of it.
Mm.
And I wasn't out of it for a few years after. But it helped other people get out of their places they wanted to get out of. So if we write authentically and you sing authentically, you play authentically, you perform authentically like here's the thing that people miss, okay? This, or the music that you make, this exists for one reason: to deliver messages.
Mm.
It doesn't exist to win a Grammy or get a record deal or be approved of. And if you do what this is for, which is deliver messages and get the response that you're trying to get, hey, get away, there's a bus coming, get out of the street, whatever it is that you want them to do, then you're going to perform or write in such a way that you might win a Grammy or get a record deal, if your business sense is right.
So I guess to switch gears a little bit from Taylor being on point with the younger girl audience, somebody else that they intrigued me a lot about how they changed is Miley Cyrus.
Yeah.
She had the Hannah Montana thing and was
Yeah.
capturing that audience, and now she's just so different, but she's
Well,
great.
the thing about it is, I've got a blog post on responsibility and successful voices, and I don't know Miley Cyrus at all. I've never met her, and I don't know what she thinks. All I know is what I see publicly,
Hmm.
and I don't like it
Mm.
because she took those young girls who were worshiping her sort of Hannah Montana image onto the the stage where the acted out in the different videos where she's very scantily clad and the whole bit. I don't know that that's putting good in the world. I
Mm.
don't know what the message is, and it seems, and like I say, I do not know her, and I don't know her why. But just looking at it, it seems to me that it's about, let me get as big a career as I can get, because her career has gotten bigger
Hmm.
and she's moved on up there. But there are more important things than moving as far up as you can, because sometimes when you get up there, your why is like dissipating into the distance, and nothing is enough.
Mm.
So I hope that's not true for her.
Yeah.
And sometimes girls go through something, and they need to grow through it, and they have to grow through it publicly, and then there's that for artists too. And then they grow up and they've done all these things, but they've been in public rather than private, like you usually get to make your mistakes. But so again, I can't judge her, but I will say this for for people in general: just know that there's got to be a deeper reason than how big can I grow my career.
Have you seen somebody who was super successful when they were younger, like somebody like a Justin Bieber or a Miley Cyrus? Have you been able to be involved with their life? Because something that I've always thought about was people want to judge or be really harsh on people for acting a certain way.
Yeah.
Like my epitome is Justin Bieber, because the guy was like 13 or 14 and was making hits, and then he got older and he started acting out, and I was like, how would you act if you had millions of dollars?
Exactly.
Year that young.
Exactly. Yeah, I've really talked to a lot of parents about this. Uh, if you get your child up, and I don't work with children, but I can work with like 9 or 10 year olds if they're doing some professional things and they really need some help so they don't trash their voice. But those little young phenomena like that, I will tell the parents, make them accountable, uh, give them people, regular people that they can interact with, understand that the lyrics that you're giving them to sing. I've lost students because I've told the parents you should not be letting your child sing that lyric.
Oh wow.
And I was happy to lose them
Hmm.
because and that doesn't mean the child can't sing a difficult lyric that's about a difficulty in life, but it's just you know, sex and curse words and all this kind of crap, that the adult stuff, that a child doesn't have any business being exposed to, much less performing themselves. And a lot of parents are like, everybody thinks it's so cute when they do that. Well, you just stand them up and let the world mow them down then. I'll tell you who I think has made it, and that's Justin Timberlake.
Mm.
I think he got over his dysfunctional years and went on to be a generous artist who is incredibly successful, incredibly good, and and just seems to have grown up in a very good way.
Yeah.
So you don't have to just. It's hard though to be a child star and not have some baggage when you grow up from it. So the thing to do is just to try to remember the why. What do you want for your child? You want them to be successful, or do you want them to have a prosperous life, or do you want them to just be stars so that you can tell everybody that they're your son or your daughter?
Yeah, I
And
mean, thinking about Justin, that goes back to what we were just talking about at the
yeah, yeah,
beginning was like NSYNC and Backstreet Boys. Like,
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't hear much. I mean, they were great for a short period of time, but
right,
then everybody went separate ways, and
yeah,
stuff like that happens when
yeah.
somebody is successful, or some producer or executive was like, everybody get out the way. I want that one.
Everybody, yes, will tell you you're the best thing since sliced bread as long as you're successful, and then take you away from what made you successful. And sometimes that's a really big mistake, and sometimes it works. Like you say, Beyonce and Justin and different people. But there are some people who I really like it when a human being is a little older, when they, at least in their late teens or early 20s or maybe late 20s, when they really strike gold as far as hit songs, because then there's some maturation that takes place and you can be safe in your own success.
Mm,
Because the most dangerous place you can be is to be worshipped,
yeah,
because then it's going to be all about you, and it's going to be really easy for you to become a rather useless human being.
you can do no wrong.
So, right, it's okay to be worshipped, like the big stars are, if you use that somehow, use your influence, and these people are influencers, to make a difference for your audience, and to send love out and to realize it's for such a time as this. It's not about you. There's got to be a reason that you're in this place. Like I say, it's not money, fame, and power that's the toxic thing. It's what you do with them and why you have them, to realize that you were lucky, because no, there's all kinds of people that are better than you are, whatever you do, that don't have this.
Mm.
So make the world a better place with your art, and then you are going to be valuable and you are going to be satisfied at the end of your long journey.
Do you find it hard for some people to have a support system, whether it's family? I've heard a lot
Yeah,
of stories where
yeah.
people decide to, they quit their job and they're doing music full on, and their family's like, maybe you
Oh,
should.
yeah. Oh, when my father found out that I wanted to go into music for my major in college, he wouldn't pay for my education.
Oh, wow.
I paid for my own education. Thank you very much. And so, yes, yeah, it can be very difficult to have a support system because the music business is well, any field of the arts, the field of any of the arts is never for sure.
Yeah.
Or being an entrepreneur, it's a gamble unless you're working for a corporation. But I don't know about you, corporations are not that safe places, not the safe places they used to be. So, yeah, you have to have a. I'd say if a person really loves you, they need to know you. And if you need to be able to make music to fill your soul, your spirit, then if they love you, they're going to support you in doing that. But they have to understand that. So you have to explain it to them. That's what I would say. And if it's a parent that's just worried sick about you, that's why they don't want you to do it. I mean, then understand that and let it be okay that they're not okay with it and love them anyway. And then when you succeed, they'll be happy.
Well, let's end it on that note. It's been great having Um, please give everybody all the information that you can about either like websites you have, stuff that you might
Well,
want.
I tell you, I've just got one hub and then a podcast myself. The hub for everything that I do is judyrodman.com. And then I have a podcast and a blog called All Things Vocal. And you'll find the blog on my website, judyrodman.com. You'll see that. And the podcast audio is embedded in there. Or you can go to a podcast app and it's All Things Vocal is probably there. So, those two things.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Judy. It's been a
Thank
pleasure having
you.
you on.
It's been a wonderful conversation.
Alrighty. Well, thank you for everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.